Well, Nebraska's Wandale Robinson revenge tour continues as we received a second commitment yesterday from another Kentucky wide receiver who is following Dykel Shorts over to play under him at Nebraska after Garrett McGuire left to go underplay his dad, Joey McGuire, at Texas Tech. So I'm going to break him down a little bit in detail for you. First things first, if you want to drop a like on the video, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. And stay up to date with all the latest and greatest. There's been a little bit of a hiatus here. I've been fighting that, issue with copyright infringement and stuff like that. So that has taken up a lot of my time. Back in the action of it though, and getting this stuff out for you. So hope everybody had a happy New Year's, and let's go ahead and dive into it. So the first thing that I want to point out, and this has been pointed out a lot, is of course Hardley Gilmore's age, right? 17 years old. When he stepped foot onto campus at Kentucky, he was 16. And that has a lot to do with the projected outlook in the future and why, Kentucky's staff and the fans were so high on him. One of the signs here is we typically see out of the transfer portal a fan base, what will kind of trash a player, for his statistics if they're not, all that much to write home about. But in this instance, Kentucky fans knew that this was the one receiver that they needed to keep because of that future projection and just how young he was and all the good stuff that Dykel Shorts said about him and his head coach said about him. Basically, Dykel Shorts he's going to go out there. He's going to give you effort. He's got a lot of charisma, and he's going to do everything asked of him. And that's one of the things that makes a great player, or will turn a good player into a great player. He's going to go out there. He's going to earn his stripes at Nebraska because Matt Rule puts a extra emphasis on the guys that go out there and work hard. Now, we have got recent news about a alleged incident that he was involved in with law enforcement on December 7th, but that seems like something that will be handled internally, and was, paperwork was still processed and all that. You have to assume Nebraska already knew about it. Kentucky was still trying really, really hard to retain him as well. So just getting into a little bit of, his overall play style and what we can expect from him at Nebraska. So the biggest thing when I talk about wide receivers a lot, I talk about ball skills, right? And, he's got a 6'1" kind of lengthy frame on him, but a little bit undersized. So I'm going to go into pros and cons from what I saw in the few little snippets of film that I have, and breaking down a little bit of his high school film. But, you see that he's a dual sport athlete, but he's a track guy in the 400 and 800. And not more so of a 100 meter, 200 meters. So his speed is a little bit of a glide, right? And he can get up to a decent speed, but he doesn't have that elite explosive acceleration speed that you see from, a Ja'Cory Barney, a Jalen Lloyd, those type of guys, right? But there is a, element of that he can work on and build. And again, just with him having that track background and just having the flow of the stride length that he does, there are some things he could do to make him more of a vertical threat in this offense. I've talked about it before, just changing up the pace of his routes on those vertical routes and just being able to sell the underneath stuff, which is what I'll get into in just a second with his route running. So talking a little bit more about his ball skills. He does have consistent hands and really good concentration. There was a play on his film and a couple on his high school film, one of them on his main film from this season where, he saw the ball coming in, tipped off the DB's hands, and it fell right into his lap, right? Continue that concentration, didn't give up on the ball, and it fell right into his hands about 3 yards behind the defensive back. So, he's good at tracking the ball, which is something that's going to be extremely important, especially in a offense that wants to kind of air the ball out a little bit. And, at 6'1", he's not your 6'3", 6'4" type of guy. So ball tracking is going to be really, really important for him to be able to maybe go make some plays over some bigger defensive backs, because he does lack in overall size, which I'll get into in just a second as well. He has the ability to make contested catches if need be. We'll see how that, kind of transitions over into the Big Ten, where it's a little bit more of a physical style. Now, his explosiveness, again, not the fastest guy on the field, but pretty good off the line. Strong burst, and, he can create separation in a myriad of ways. And even though he's 17 and just needs to refine a lot of these skill sets, these are more so just him being a young an underdeveloped player with that development that he'll need at the collegiate level than anything. And of course, this season missed the first 5 games of the season, was able to come back in and play the back half of the season. But again, was supposed to be a big part of this offense. And at such a young age, a lot to work on. His base is just excellent. So when talking about his explosiveness, he does have the ability to get the separation in that regard and be able to kind of, use that first step off the line to really push and attack the leverage. I talked about this a lot in my Dane Key film breakdown, but just kind of pushing that leverage back and then just being able to break off routes from there. I'll get into his route running in just a second as well. He does have a really good understanding, and again, I talked about this with Dane Key, of zones and instinctual wide receiver play. There are some details to his game that you see on his high school film, especially where he will kind of, change his route off a little bit just to kind of, find that soft spot of the zone, or slow his route up and change the pace up to be able to get in that soft spot of the zone, fill the void, and kind of let that wide receiver find him. So he's going to be a guy who understands positioning, and that's going to help him get open. Pretty good read of the field, and he also played defensive back, which really, really helps. That element really helps them to read the field when they're out there and kind of processing the information, because they better understand, the kind of defensive back movements and what the defense overall is doing. So that is a big key, and that's going to help him at the next level. The fact that he did play a lot of defensive back in high school as well. Now, the other thing too is kind of move him all over. He's got a little height to him. He does need to add some strength to him, but with Dana Holgerson's offense, they kind of want these receivers moving a little bit, all over the place in motions. You want them in the slot. You're going to want them on the outside, things of that nature. And he's versatile in that regard. And again, some of his route running can be improved, but the basics of his route running are there. He's going to need to kind of advance that skill set a little bit more to be able to kind of, hit some of these more difficult routes. But the thing about it is, in Dana Holgerson's offense, there is a lot of simple route concepts that are just operation and getting guys in space, right? And so he's going to be able to make a big impact just with the ability to run routes that he has now. And Dykel Shorts didn't bring him over for no reason. He sees the foundation, and he's already worked with him before. He knows how he takes on to coaching, and he knows what he needs to do to develop. And that's why I feel like the sky's the limit so far, just in terms of his route running, especially. We see how great of a route runner Dane Key is. So, Dykel did a great job with him. Now we'll see what he can do with Hardley Gilmore. Now, moving over just to a couple of weaknesses. I talked about the top end speed, but one of the biggest things is getting kind of that strength to him. Again, just really, he hasn't had the time as a 17-year-old to really grow into his body, and that's no fault of his. That's something that's going to come, as he gets older, muscle maturity with the strength and conditioning level. It's just the fact that he came in so young, reclassified from 2025, where he was supposed to be a top 100 recruit. Reclassified to 2024, where he was supposed to be a top 100 recruit in the 25 class. And so that, put him a little bit, behind the curve in regards to that. But that physicality and that ability to really be able to, work on some of the weaknesses. And the weaknesses are going to be the run blocking, just consistency in that department. And that's, again, going to come with just kind of polishing up those skills and putting a little bit more strength on them without adding too much bulk. And like I said, just kind of getting jammed at the top of routes, getting pressed off the line, press man coverage and stuff like that. Those are all things that will come off of the physicality front. So a lot of these weaknesses are things that it's going to take a little time to develop, because they are just about his physical stature. And as a 17-year-old, you're not really fully developed. As he gets into 18, 19, 20, we're going to see that kind of muscle maturity and that strength really come from him. But in the strength and conditioning program, him coming into 18, 19 years old, it's going to be really, really imperative that they hammer in on that hard to get that physicality there. So that way he is able to kind of deal with maybe some of these more physical defenses in the Big Ten. That will be a big point of concern. But again, moving him around, getting him, the ability he has to create separation, and just being able to play with his hands a little bit and stuff like that can account for some of that, getting jammed at the top of your route, some of that lack of physicality. He can make up for that type of thing. Dykel Shorts also talked about, him being able to kind of, in practice, make a play on the sideline where most of the guys would have went out of bounds, but he pushes up the field for an extra few yards, right? Like he has that cerebral football IQ to him that's going to help him be able to kind of, just really get Nebraska the extra effort that they've been needing. And you have a guy, he said, you can run him out there 10 plays, 10 different routes. He's going to do whatever you say. And I feel like that's something that was lacking this year. There was an effort issue in a lot of instances. And one of the reasons I was big on Fedoni, and I liked Fedoni regardless of what a lot of people say, he was one of the players that gave effort on every single snap he was out there, right? Graded out as the second best offensive player in the bowl game. So when you have a guy who goes out there and executes, but not only executes, if you have a guy who goes out there and he plays his heart out and practices at a high level and gives you 110% effort on every play, they're talking about that was like kind of Vincent Shavers coming into the season. He was one of those guys who just was effort. He wanted to go around and fly around and make plays. And that's what we kind of have here with Hardley Gilmore as well. So, body control is pretty good. Just him talking about that and showing his body control to be able to retain that on the sidelines, be able to get up the field for a few extra yards. Body control is very important. And we see that a little bit on his film as well. That is one of those things that, with these skill sets that he already has as a base, the nuanced stuff and the little extra stuff, it's going to be a lot easier to build from. Again, it's going to be a natural progression of him as a receiver. Familiar with Dykel Shorts. Dykel Shorts knows how to handle this type of receiver and knows how to coach him and Dane Key. And then having Dane Key over there, I'm sure, is going to be very, very helpful to him. Having Dane as kind of a mentor and a leader in that, in that space as well. And you got, of course, Jamar Mosey working with the offensive skill players. Again, still working with those guys. So, a lot of leadership in that wide receiver coaching staff and that offensive coaching staff, and a lot of leadership in this locker room as well. And somebody he's familiar with in that regard. So, Nebraska really kind of shored up that wide receiver position. Jalen Lloyd, out. So we bring Hardley Gilmore in to go along with Isaiah Hunter and Dane Key. And I'm going to do a full breakdown of the wide receiver room. I'm going to be going through each position group as we go along here in the offseason, especially, and kind of give you an idea of what I think overall will kind of be the strengths and weaknesses of this wide receiver core. But I can tell you right now, every move that Nebraska made has been intentional. And if you want to go check out, Mitch Sherman actually posted on X yesterday a breakdown of the numbers and the roster spots and stuff like that. So I won't, put out too much of that information you can already find. But if you want me to break that down, I also will be going over that in my live stream. But if you want to go check that out in advance, you can see the roster numbers, just kind of how Nebraska will be able to have to break that down. But he did indicate that as of right now, without more players coming in, there will have to be about 26 people that still have to go. And again, kind of frustrating with the way these things have worked with this, roster change, sizes and stuff like that. A lot of these guys who are going to want to play for Nebraska because they were fans, it's unfortunate that a lot of these guys aren't going to be able to come on. And, because those are a lot of the guys that play with that effort, that want to be here and that really want to be a part of the Nebraska culture. And, again, I talked about this in a recruiting video a long time ago. Guys in that 500-mile radius are the ones that are most likely to stay no matter the situation. So that's my breakdown on Hardley Gilmore. So I'm going to come back with some film and stuff like that. Like I said, I was dealing with those issues with the copyright infringement and dealing with YouTube and also the company that was trying to copyright it. So I'm in communication with them, figuring that out. But again, I will have some stuff coming for my members as I get a little bit more. If you do want to become a member of the channel, hit the join button. Black Shirt Brigade and up, we'll be able to get those extra videos, the extra content and stuff like that. So if you do want to support the channel further, it's greatly appreciated. But even so much as a like, a comment, subscribing, a view, it all helps tremendously. And I appreciate each and every single one of you. And again, I hope everybody had a happy new year. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.